The sun had barely risen when I opened my eyes to a day that filled me with horror. Nothing could happen today that would hurt me too much, but if things don't go the way I want, it might steal the icing off my cake. When I started to get up, she also woke up and reached for my hand. She placed it back on her very pregnant belly. "Let those bastards wait," she said, snuggling even closer to me. "It doesn't matter to me at all. They don't matter, the law doesn't matter, and society doesn't matter. Only our three are important. All that matters is you, me, and our child. So hold me a little longer, and then we will go and throw our pearls before the pigs." I shrugged, a gesture that was lost in the darkness, and pulled her closer to me. We made love. Later, after showering together, as we sat down to breakfast, she grabbed my hand. "Barry, we don't really have to go," she said thoughtfully. "What we have is enough. This is much more than I ever hoped for and 1,000 times better than what I had." I simply nodded. "But we still have to try," I said. "I'll bring the car." I must be the biggest bastard on the planet, I thought. I was really happy. I wouldn't trade my life for anything, regardless of its parameters. Let me explain what just happened, and you'll see what I mean. I am single, that is, divorced. I just woke up and had breakfast with the pregnant wife of the man who was once my best friend. He considered himself one up until the moment I left with her about 18 months ago. The child growing in her belly is, of course, mine. She wasn't pregnant when we left. I wasn't completely divorced then. Her husband, Jay, would probably take her back in a heartbeat, even now. I think it would have been good for him to have her around, even after we ran away together, since he is paraplegic and wheelchair-bound. He seemed to really love her and everything. He always told everyone how beautiful she was. I guess the fool thought they'd grow old together and all that. It's funny in a way. This is what made Aubrey and I so nervous. We're going to visit Jay today to accept our fate and clear things up. I guess it's a bit of a closure. Jay is the last person we need to meet. The families, both hers and mine, have been coming to terms with our relationship for 1.5 years. Her parents began to respect and even love me, although they would prefer that we were married. And my parents fell in love with her at first sight, despite the fact that I literally ran away with a married woman and got her pregnant. I'm sure that right now you already hate me. You're imagining me as some bastard who wants to run away with your wife, or if you're already divorced, as the one who did it. In the back of your mind, you imagine emptying the entire magazine of your Glock into me after you catch me having sex with her in your bed. In your righteous anger, you call me every possible obscenity, don't you? And if this were the whole story, I would be at the same time with you. But before you send me to the final circle of hell, why don't you listen to my story? Why not walk a mile in my shoes before passing judgment? It won't hurt you and may open your eyes. I think I should start in the middle. My name is Barry Allen. A few years after our wedding, my wife Iris and I moved to a beautiful cul-de-sac. You've seen these before. The road leads to a dead end, and the houses are located in a circle. Ours was very beautiful. It was an average neighborhood, but very well maintained by people who clearly cared about their property. And since there were only 4 houses in the cul-de-sac, everyone knew each other. In fact, everyone came to see us the day we moved in to make sure we fit in. And from the very beginning, we fit in. 4 couples in a couple of years became more like extended family than just neighbors. Jay Garrick and his wife Aubrey were there, of course. Jay was the oldest of us. He was in his 40s, tall and a little plump, with thinning hair, but he was a real man. The word around the area was that Jay was a reformed womanizer who met and married the woman of his dreams after only knowing her for a few days. Jay always said that no matter how many women you've dated, it's always special when you meet one. There was Wallace West, whom we all called Wally, of course. Wally was short and a little plump. He also wore big, thick glasses and looked like the typical accountant that he was. Wally's wife, Deborah, was, and I think still is, a school teacher and a very good one. The last couple was Bart Allen, no relation, and his wife Christy. Bart and Christy both worked in sales. They apparently met at a conference. They are also the only ones in the area who had children at that time. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, but the entire neighborhood essentially adopted these children and used them to practice their parenting skills. We all got along great and would always have parties or get-togethers at one of the houses. Everything was perfect until a year after we moved in, when I noticed that while Jay was still great, he had actually become my best friend. His wife, Aubrey, had turned into a real bitch. This was an interesting topic of conversation for Wally and Bart. This hurt Jay because it seemed like she was treating her own husband just as badly as the rest of us. As a best friend, I had to listen to him complain and moan about how their sex life had faded and how she barely wanted to talk to him, let alone have sex. For a womanizer like Jay, I think he could handle her silence, but the lack of sex was killing him. We 4 men gathered to support Jay, eating pizza and drinking beer one Sunday while watching a football game. Football games were always watched at my house because I had a 60-inch 1080p plasma TV. The worst part about Aubrey's craziness was that she was, without a doubt, the hottest wife around. She looked exactly like that girl from Southern Charms, Shanna Knoll. She had the same reddish hair that fell over her shoulders, generous but not excessive breasts that demanded attention against the backdrop of a thin waist, and such beautiful legs that seeing her in shorts or a skirt would be worth declaring a national holiday. Her butt would have to be included on any list of California's greatest natural treasures, and if you asked me, it would be pretty high on that list. Aubrey clearly forced. All our wives look worse. Because of her looks, of course, the other wives were almost glad when she headed straight to Beachville. On the other hand, the men, as I already mentioned, gathered to console Jay. I suggested that maybe we did something at one of the parties to offend her or hurt her feelings. Perhaps we all laughed too hard at some joke about her. Jay rejected this idea. Wally thought that maybe she was going through an early hormonal break or her hormones were out of whack. We all looked at each other because we had no experience in this area, but damn, the women were mysterious even to the men who married them, so it was possible. Finally, Bart said what we were all really thinking. As hot as Aubrey was, she probably had sex on the side. Jay loved her even though she was a bitch, and his face just fell when Bart suggested that. We all vowed to help him through the crisis in any way possible. After the summit, Jay and I retired to my office. We went online and found a good private detective. We received weekly reports and videos. After 2 months of work, the detective quit. He said that as much as he loved taking Jay's money, he couldn't in good conscience continue. Jay paid for 24-hour surveillance for 2 months, and Aubrey never left the house without Jay. She also never hosted anyone unless Jay was home. She had to be the loneliest woman on the planet. In the meantime, we looked into information about hormonal pause, and it turned out that Aubrey, at 27 years old, was too young for this. So, with our 2 most promising theories debunked in our ultimate male wisdom, the 4 of us simply declared Aubrey a bitch. I'm sure Jay was mostly relieved to find out she wasn't cheating on him. Now I know what Jay should have done in the first place was just ask Aubrey what was wrong, but it never occurred to him, or any of us for that matter. Even though we spent a lot of time together, we all had our own individual interests and hobbies. Wally and Bart loved to bowl and were in the same league. Jay loved to play golf and also loved going to the races. I had my Mustang. I was always tuning it or cleaning it, but I also loved to run. At 26, I was 5'9" inches and weighed about 170 pounds. I'm in very good shape from running and working out. Working out is just a part of me. I took it for granted that not everyone does it. My wife, Iris, on the other hand, is almost my exact opposite. Iris is 5'1" inch, and she lies about her height. She tries to convince everyone that she is 5'4". She does this because if she were 5'4", her BMI would be slightly above normal. She can accept the fact that she is overweight, but the term obese is offensive to her. Personally, I don't care. I fell in love with Iris when we were in college, and she was a little chubby back then. Of course, her size had its advantages. Iris had incredible breasts, and her ass was so big and round. No wonder Iris and I were always looking for secluded places to avoid charges of public indecency. If you had asked me before all this, I would have told you without a doubt that I prefer my slightly overweight but warm and caring wife to this icy beauty next door. At that time, I believed in only two things as immutable. The first is that my Mustang will outrun any car in the area, including Jay's Camaro. And second, that Iris loves me with all her heart. Although we met under questionable circumstances, I was confident that over the last 4 years of marriage and 2 years of friendship before that, we had proven to each other that we would always be together. In fact, Iris was the one who always said that only death could separate us, and then only until we were both gone. I believed her with all my heart and felt the same. But since I'm here telling you this story, obviously we were both wrong. It was a typical autumn Sunday when everything went to hell. Sundays are my long run day. That morning I told Iris that I was going to run 20 miles, which was my usual routine when training for a fall marathon. Unfortunately, I just didn't have 20 miles that day, so I decided to finish after 10. As I was walking back down our street and approaching my house, I saw Aubrey in her yard. I waved to her, and, as expected, she pretended not to see me. I was sure she saw and was just being a bitch as usual. I felt sorry for Jay and wondered again how a good man like Jay could end up with such an evil woman. I always tried to be as kind to her as possible, hoping that one day she would change and become the woman she was when we first moved here. I ran up to my house and noticed that I could see into my living room as I walked up onto the porch. Iris always told me to close the curtains, and apparently when I was checking the weather before my run, I forgot to close them. It wouldn't make any difference. They were so busy that they wouldn't have noticed me anyway. Iris and my best friend Jay, the good man that he was, were having sex. Bart stood nearby, waiting his turn. I found it hard to believe what I saw. Then I heard a poisonous voice behind me. "You're even worse than the rest. You get pleasure from watching them have sex with this prostitute," Aubrey said behind me. "What kind of pervert are you? Why don't you come in and join the rest of the perverts?" I turned to her, not knowing what to say. Obviously, words were not needed. "Oh my God," she said incredulously. "You didn't know, did you?" She grabbed my arm and tried to keep me from entering the house. "I'm so sorry, Barry," she said. "I thought you knew everything and were involved in this." "Well, how could I know? Bart is there, and so is Wally. I also know that Christy knows this because she and Bart love to switch partners. I just assumed that you, being this bastard's best friend and the husband of a woman of easy virtue, also knew about it. It makes sense when you think about it. I thought you were all switching partners." "I have to get out of here," I said. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Without a word, I headed towards my garage. I pulled out my key fob from my tracksuit pocket. As I pressed the button to open the garage door, I noticed that Aubrey kept pace with me. I remembered that I kept a spare set of car keys in the garage in a toolbox drawer. I took out the keys and started the car. The sound of the 8 pulsating pistons was drowned out by the beating of my heart. I needed to leave the house as quickly as possible so as not to kill someone. I just wanted to go. I didn't have a specific destination, I just had to go. I pulled the car out of the driveway with my eyes narrowed to slits with anger. The Mustang's engine was so loud that I almost didn't notice the side door of my house open as I drove by. The only thing I saw was Aubrey's long reddish hair flash as she raised her hands as if praying or pleading and looked at me through the window. She's been a bitch to everyone in the area for over a year now. But now it made sense. I pressed the button to unlock the door for her, and once she was in the car, we were off. When we left the driveway, I saw Iris come out of the house in a hastily put-on robe that was fluttering. She looked straight at me and realized that I had seen her. I shifted from reverse to forward and drove away. For the first few minutes, fortunately, neither Aubrey nor I said a word. She then diplomatically broke the silence. "If you don't slow down, the only place we're going is jail," she said. I eased off the gas, but still didn't say a word. "I'm so sorry, Barry," she said. "I really thought you knew." You already said that, I said. But I'm confused. If you knew this was happening, why didn't you tell me? I explained that too, she replied sharply. I thought you knew and were in on it. I guess you don't remember me very well from when we were friends, I said sharply. But I loved my wife. There's no way I'd ever share it with anyone. Too bad she doesn't think so, she chuckled. Then, realizing that her words could hurt me, she changed her tone and manner of speaking. Barry, I didn't mean for it to sound the way it did, she said. I remember you were a really nice guy. Maybe I should have remembered that and at least tried. But when I first found out about all this, I was just as shocked and hurt as you are now. I loved Jay with all my heart. I couldn't believe he could do this to me, especially after all the words and promises he gave me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw that she was upset and on the verge of tears. My stomach started growling. I had run too far without eating. My legs were starting to go numb too. I pulled off the highway and started looking for a place to eat. I noticed the IHOP sign and headed there. I bought big breakfasts and coffee for both of us. We took them with us and went to the park that I had seen earlier. We sat down at a table overlooking the playground. Several small children hung on the swings or rode the slides, their carefree laughter filling the air. The sounds of their happiness and their attempts to impress their mothers created a joyful atmosphere. Only Aubrey and I remained indifferent to their joy. That's what I wanted, Aubrey said, nodding toward the mothers and their children. This is my dream. I have a house. All I need is a loving man and a child. I thought I had it all, she said. This is what I wanted when I was younger, I said. My timing was bad, and after meeting Iris, my priorities changed. She just looked at me, and for the first time in a year, I saw her smile. What sport did you participate in? She asked. Athletics, I said. I'm a long-distance runner now, but a few years ago in college, I ran 5 KS and 10 KS. You're still in very good shape, she said. That's one of the things I've always admired about you. You're still young enough to try. I have a life now, I said quietly, and I became too soft to devote my life to such hard training. Plus, there are certain household amenities that I simply cannot do without. There's also the practical side of things. Nobody even remembers American track and field athletes. While the Olympics are going on, we pay attention to athletics, but once the medals are handed out, we don't think about the sport until the next games in 4 years. And of course, there are steroids, I said. She laughed, but I didn't understand why. So here we are, two little sheep who gave up on our dreams and still ended up with the ones we thought loved us the most but turned out to be cheaters, she laughed. At least you can laugh, I said. This is the worst day of my damn life. Sorry, but this is a good day for me, she said. I know you feel bad, but I finally have a friend. I finally have someone I can talk to about this. For the last year or so, I've kept it all to myself. I literally had no one I could talk to. So that's why you became. I began. Bitch, she finished for me. Yes, that's why. But why didn't you divorce him or leave him? I asked. And do what or where? She asked. Wherever you want, I said. You are beautiful. You can do whatever you want in life. And you're still only, what, 27 years old. You can do whatever you want. Barry, she said quietly, not everyone is the same. I have already done what I set out to do, and apparently failed. Life is not all about looks, and not everyone wants the same thing. I don't have the same will as you. I have already told you. All I wanted was to be someone's wife and someone's mother. When I met Jay, I was 22 years old, a small-town waitress with limited opportunities. I knew that Jay was a womanizer. I met many such men who passed through our city. I didn't fall in love with their words because I knew what I wanted from life. I also knew what I didn't want. I didn't want to be another notch on some man's belt. I wanted a man who would be devoted to me and to us. I wanted someone who would love only me, and I wanted to build a life and family with this man. I thought Jay was him. I made him wait a long time and promised to marry me before anything started. We didn't have sex until our wedding night, And that was the first time I went all the way. My life started out so damn good. She stopped talking and started eating her bacon. I loved watching how her mouth moved and how carefully she took a bite. And then you moved, she said. At first, everything was fine. We all got along and everything went well. I told Jay it was time to have a baby or four. I started asking Christy about it, and she told me to be careful what you wish for because having a baby is life-changing. I walked away from that conversation thinking she was the most selfish bitch ever. I went home, and on the way I saw Jay entering your house. He looked around as if to make sure no one saw him, and then entered. I wondered what was going on. I thought maybe you were planning something again, so I quietly followed him. When I looked into your house, I saw your wife with him. Well, you understand. She shook her head, and I saw tears in the corners of her eyes. I tried to do it for Jay, but apparently I'm not very good at it, she said, and the things she allows him to do. Barry, I loved this man so much. There was nothing I wouldn't do for him, but he didn't even give me a chance. Some of the things they do are just disgusting. Did you know what she lets him do to her? No, I said. Do you do this too? She asked curiously. No, I'm just not into it, I said. I guess I'm a little old-fashioned, but it just doesn't seem sexy to me. So I'm not alone, she said. But as stupid as it sounds, I would let him do it to me if he ever asked. I think there's also the fact that she allows him to be rough with her and it's just disgusting. Maybe I'm old-fashioned too. Anyway, as soon as I saw it, I knew Jay was lying to me. He promised that his days as a cheater were over when he met me and that we would lead a good life together. The first few days I was really hurt. Then I just decided to take revenge on him. I stopped having sex with him. But I think I hurt myself more than he did because he still has your wife, and they've gotten even more disgusting since then. All I got was more anger and loneliness. I guess I'm just a stupid country girl, she said. Because when I looked into Jay's eyes, I truly believed that he loved me and that he was serious about all those promises. I truly believed that I was the only one for him. I squeezed her hand, which somehow intertwined its thin fingers with mine. I think we should start a club for simpletons, I said. My situation is strikingly similar to yours. I met Iris in college. I was on the track team, and as I said, I was preparing for the Olympics. I tried everything to become better. I even tried training with other athletes. I thought cross-training with soccer players and sprinters would help me. I'll get their explosiveness and speed, and they'll get my stamina. It really worked, and I also made some friends who were much more popular than me. I was in one of my training buddies' dorms when I met Iris. They always had all sorts of girls hanging out with them. Some of them were very beautiful. These were the girls that normal guys just couldn't get. There were also those who were not very good. I really didn't understand then what a girl like Iris was doing there. It turned out that she was there to rehearse some football players. We started talking, and I found her to be a very nice girl. Of course, I wasn't stupid enough to think that she was somehow untouched, but I liked her. One of my friends warned me about her, however. He told me to find myself a good girl, because Iris is not for me. He said she started out as a tutor, but she's just as bad as the other women there. And because she was a bigger girl, and not as pretty as some, she had to do a lot more to get guys' attention. He wasn't trying to hurt me, but as a friend of mine, he felt I should know. I took his advice and didn't call Iris. I dated a few nice girls over the course of a year or so. They were just good girls. Most of them were more popular than Iris. Most of them were also more beautiful. They were all slimmer, but none of them made me feel the way she did. I ran into her again the year I was about to graduate. I studied in the library, and she worked there. She walked over to my desk and introduced herself again. I told her she didn't need to do that or remind me where we met because I remembered her very well. She seemed shocked by this. I told her I could probably replay most of our conversation that night, and she was even more shocked when I did. We sat there talking in the library until it closed and then went for coffee. She gave me her phone number again, and told me not to wait another year before we saw each other again. I was really torn because on the one hand, she was a truly special woman, but on the other hand, I was warned. I called her the next evening, and we stayed on the phone for over an hour. Finally, she just asked me out. I think my hesitation told her something. She asked me straight out if I liked her, and I answered without hesitation that I really did. She said she really believed there was a spark between us. I told her I felt it too. She told me she was practically starving herself to lose weight, and I asked her why. She said most of the guys she knew didn't want to date big girls, but if I gave her a chance, she'd lose weight because she really thought we had something. I started laughing, and she hung up. I called her back right away, and she hung up again. She turned off her phone, so I left her 20 messages. The next evening, I went to the library and sat right in front of her counter. I told her I wasn't leaving until we talked. She was really angry, and I could see that she was just hurt. But she told me that she had a break at 9 o'clock in the evening, and that I should come then. When we were talking on her break, she said I had 5 minutes because she didn't want to spend her entire break on me. I could say whatever I needed to say, but after that I had to promise to leave her alone. I agreed, and she said she was giving me her speech about how I'm a good guy, but don't date fat girls. Then I started laughing again. I could see tears in her eyes, so I grabbed her hand and told her I thought she was beautiful and really sexy as is, and she doesn't need to lose an ounce of weight for me. When she heard this, she just continued to give other reasons why other guys didn't want to date her. I said none of them were true. She suggested just meeting me in secret. We could always stay at my dorm or hers and make sure no one sees us together. I asked why we should do this. She told me not to worry about anyone seeing us together. Even if I'm not worried about her weight, I'm probably worried that some of my friends might see us. I just shook my head. I finally told her what my friend warned me about. I explained to her that I was just looking for someone good who could be mine. I wasn't interested in anyone hanging out with the football team or anything like that. We had a long conversation, and she explained to me that she didn't really like it. The problem was that she was a healthy girl with a healthy sex drive, and she had to take what she could get. Most guys didn't like me. Her size was a big deterrent for them. A lot of people who liked her just had sex with her, took money from her, or used her in other ways, but a shitty sex life is better than no sex life. She also said that she would prefer to be in an exclusive relationship with one man, but she didn't have anyone willing to accept her offer, so she took what she could get. So we started dating, and after we graduated, we did all the normal things. We met each other's families. We got engaged. We started living together and got married. Finally, we moved into the area and met the rest of you. Now what? She asked. I mean, in my case, I enjoy torturing Jay, but I have no idea what to do next. I think I was hoping that he would understand that what he was doing was wrong and that it was ruining our marriage. But with your wife, he has an alternative, and he takes advantage of it. He's essentially getting a cheap cleanup. I haven't decided exactly what to do yet, Aubrey, I said. I need to think. Sorry, but I am a man, and in such a situation there must be some kind of revenge. I can't just lie there and let it happen, but I need to think about what I want to do. Just coming in and punching Jay in the face might satisfy me for a minute or two, but it's not what's going to make me happy in the long run. The same goes for the others. They have pretty much ruined most of my life. I wish I had never moved to this damn area, I said. She nodded. But at least we don't have to go through this alone, she said. We got back into my Mustang and began the journey home. Despite what I had been through, I couldn't help but notice that it was a really good day. The weather was sunny, with a light, cool autumn breeze. After I had the opportunity to vent to Aubrey, I felt a little better. I was still in pain, but the severity of my rage had diminished. Now there was no danger that I would take a baseball bat and start hitting Jay or anyone else. I also started thinking about what I wanted to do. When we arrived at our house, it seemed like all eyes were on us. Bart and Christy were sitting on their porch and began talking animatedly as we drove by. Wally and Deborah were watching us too. Deb waved to us, and Wally turned away. He started walking towards my house as we passed. When we pulled up to my house, I saw Jay waiting on my porch. I pulled up the driveway and pulled the car into the garage. Jay followed my car. I left, and so did Aubrey. Iris walked out the back door as soon as the garage door closed. Aubrey hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear that she would see me later. Jay's eyes narrowed and his lips tightened when he saw the hug. I also noticed Wally heading towards my house. "Barry," Iris said sadly. I ignored her and turned to Jay. Some of the rage I had swallowed resurfaced. "Barry, I'm sorry, buddy," he began. "We need to talk about this as adults and figure out how I can make amends." That was all he got to say before I hit him. Wally was shocked, and Iris stood in the driveway with her hand over her mouth. "Barry," Jay said, "I hope you feel better. I think I deserve it. We deserve everything, but we need to talk about it." When I got to the porch, I heard Aubrey yell through the fence to Jay, who was still lying on the ground. "Jay, are we out of tanning oil?" "Barry, please don't tell Deborah," Wally whined. I walked past him and entered the house. I headed into my living room and turned on the TV. I found one of the endless broadcasts before an NFL game, and although my eyes were on the screen, I wasn't watching. My mind was still focused on the plan to take revenge on my neighbors. I heard the door open and Iris entered the room. "Barry, honey, we need to talk about what happened," she said. "Iris, I'm not in the mood for you or this whole damn thing right now," I snapped. "Get out of this room before I hit you." "Barry, hiding here won't solve the problem," she said. "It may not." She stopped mid-sentence when I looked at her and walked out. 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Iris answered, and someone knocked on my door. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, Bart came in carrying pizza. "Where is everyone?" he asked. "It's almost game time." "Bart, if you don't get out of here, I'll kick your ass," I snapped. "Barry, we were wrong," he said. "We should have talked to you about this a long time ago. It didn't mean anything to me. Our friendship means so much more to me. So, to even the score, I agreed that you would spend time with Christy. I'm not sure if you know this, but Christy and I have an open marriage and you like her. This way we will be even." "Bart, you have 3 seconds to get out of my house," I said. "I don't want you or your wife to ever come near me again." "Oh, I see you've already chosen someone else," he said. "A good choice." I looked behind me to see what he was babbling about and saw Aubrey standing in the doorway with a plate of chocolate chip cookies. "I came to watch football with you," she said, smiling. "Jay is in our bathroom, trying to ice his lip and find something to calm his stomach." She giggled as she said this. Bart looked at her as he passed by. He smiled at her as if he was about to say something, but her icy gaze froze him in place. She sat down on the couch next to me with a plate of cookies between us. When the game started, I asked her what she wanted to drink. "Milk, please," she smiled. "It goes great with cookies." "But beer goes well with football," I objected. "Okay, then get yourself one while you bring my milk," she laughed. When I returned to the room, Iris was there again. She was saying something to Aubrey, who ignored her. "No glasses yet," Aubrey said as I sat down. "Which team is ours?" "Those guys in blue and silver are our Detroit Lions," I said. "Barry, we live in California. Aren't there any teams from California?" she asked. "Well, there's the 49ers and the Raiders," I said. "Then why is our team the Lions?" she asked. "Who are they playing with?" Iris asked. I ignored her and turned to Aubrey. "I attended the University of Michigan to get my degree. There, I started rooting for the Lions when they were terrible. Now they are on the rise for the first time in 20 years. I've been with them for as long as I can remember." I looked straight at Iris and said, "Loyalty is very important to me." "I love the shape of them," Aubrey said. "Who are they playing with?" Iris asked again. "They can't play against me," I snapped. "Because you already did. You've been playing me like a fool for a long time." "But," Iris began. "Why are you even here?" I barked. I just want to watch the damn game in silence. Get out. But Iris began again. My friend, I interrupted, and she's invited. Get out. For the next 3.5 hours, Aubrey and I sat on my couch with our feet up and watched the game. The Lions beat the Cowboys and Aubrey, and I had a great time. When the game ended, with some time left before the post-game show began, Aubrey picked up the remote and said, "It's my turn." She went into the on-demand menu and found the movie. Surprisingly, this was a film I had not yet seen, and to even greater surprise, it was a good movie. A relatively new film with Nicolas Cage called Drive Angry. It was a crazy movie, but very action-packed and quite good. We were running low on cookies, and our drinks were empty. I went and got supplements for both Aubrey and myself. As I walked to the kitchen, I noticed that Iris and all her accomplices were gathered in the living room. "Barry," Iris said quietly. "What?" I barked. "Are you going to have sex again?" "Well, don't worry. We'll turn on the surround sound and turn up the volume. You can just turn on the fan to get rid of the smell." "Barry, your friends and I would like to talk to you when the game is over," Iris said quietly. "The game is already over. I'm watching a movie with the only friend I have left, and if you don't get your lovers out of my house, I'll shoot them all as soon as the movie ends. Besides, isn't it time for you to move all your things to another bedroom?" "Barry, I don't think we should talk about divorce until we've exhausted all other options," she said. "I know I was wrong, but one mistake didn't." I walked back into the room and sat down on the couch next to Aubrey. "Jay still loves you," I told her. "He was very quick to protect you. Maybe you can make your dream come true after all." "Iris still loves you," she replied. "When you brought me the milk, she told me to stay away from you or else. So if our spouses still claim to love us, maybe we can both get what we want. I don't know about you, Barry, but I've had over a year to think about this. I think Jay, in his own way, really loves me. The problem is that if he can cheat on me so easily and for so long, then he doesn't love me the way I want to be loved. So, as the Van Halen song says, I need to dream another dream. This dream is over." "It's the same with me," I said. "I need to talk to a good lawyer to figure out how I can get out of this marriage with dignity and most of my assets. I usually believe in a 50-50 division of assets, but she destroyed our marriage single-handedly. There must be a punishment for this." "We think very similar," she chuckled. "Do you like Van Halen?" I asked. We both smiled. We got up when the movie ended so I could walk her home. On her porch, in front of Jay, Wally, and Bart, she hugged me tightly again. "Stay away from my wife," Jay hissed as I walked past him. "What I did was wrong, but your fat-assed wife came after me. Barry, you have to understand. I haven't had sex in a year, man. A whole damn year without sex. So when I saw Iris—" "Jay," I snapped, turning to him. He retreated, remembering how I had just beaten him. "Firstly, if, as you say, Iris was the one who came after you, and that justifies you, then the same can be said about me. Aubrey is lonely. She deserves a friend, and I intend to be one. Secondly, you really ruined everything, and it's your fault. You, Jay, ruined everything for everyone because you started this. Aubrey stopped having sex with you because she saw you with Iris, not the other way around. She knew about you all from the very beginning. If you hadn't interjected and started having sex with my wife, we would still be friends. You basically exchanged your wife for mine." He looked down. "He's the one who got me into this," Wally said. "But it didn't look like you were putting up much of a fight because I saw it," I snapped. "And Wally, sooner or later, will get Deborah involved in this. So you better start making amends to her now because I'm sure she'll divorce you when she finds out." "So this is the plan?" Jay asked. "You want to swap wives? Because I will never agree to this. This is not a fair deal. Aubrey is the most beautiful woman I know. No, it's not fair. I will never agree." "Guess what, dumbass?" I said loudly. "Until this morning, I thought the same thing. If you had just come and said, 'Barry, do you want to switch?' I would have laughed in your face. Until this morning, I loved my wife more than anyone in the world. There is no way I would ever agree to share or exchange it. But we can't always get what we want. You ruined my marriage, and it's only fair that you suffer too. You guys talk like it's something from the Stone Age, Bart said. Christy and I slept with others all the time, and we're still together. This was just an experiment to see if you liked it. Now we know you don't want to do this. So you guys make up with your spouses, then we make up as friends and forget everything, okay? Not good, Bart, I said. You and Christy don't have what I would call a marriage. You have something like business partners or maybe roommates. When we have a barbecue, you don't hug or kiss. You don't even talk about each other. You just share a house and sometimes have sex when neither of you has someone else. Your marriage is pathetic. I really can't believe you offered her to me today to save our friendship or your ass. I think about it. It's like you sold it so I wouldn't be mad at you. Obviously, I'm more important to you than your own wife. This is more than a little abnormal. Until this morning, you guys were like brothers to me, but collectively, you weren't as important to me as Iris. I lost 4 of the most important people in my life at the same time. But, Jay began. Enough with the buts, I said. You guys wanted to talk. We talked. From now on, don't tell me ever again. You destroyed my marriage. There is no forgiveness for that. So, from now on, you will have to use someone else's house to have sex with her, because if I see any of you near my house, I will shoot first and ask questions later. When I turned towards the house, I saw that Iris was listening. As soon as I entered the house, Iris followed me. She had tears in her eyes. Barry, you gave them a chance to talk. I want mine, she said. I sat down on the steps and looked at her. I think it's better now than after we get lawyers involved, I said. Barry, I'm not going to make excuses for what I did, she said. I was stupid. I was wrong, and to be honest, I never expected you to catch me or find out. It was just sex and just for fun. You knew what kind of woman I was when we started dating. Maybe I embellished it a little to try to convince you otherwise, but you knew that I was a woman of easy virtue. I didn't start this way, but that's how the circumstances turned out. We have been together for 6 years and married for 4 years. This is the first time I've done something like this. Don't I deserve another chance? I promise you that this will never happen again. Barry, you've always had the freedom to choose who you want and go after them. For most of my life, I have always been a chubby girl. I had to open up to be noticed, and even then I wasn't noticed the way I wanted. So yes, when you met me and your friend warned you about me, he was telling the truth. I would hang out at the football players' dorms, and a lot of these guys would just have sex with me whenever they felt like it. Most of them could then go out and act like gentlemen with the women they really wanted. Or if they came home after going out and didn't get anything, I was there. Sometimes I was there for 2 or 3 of them at the same time. This was not what I wanted. No girl I know ever grows up dreaming of being a prostitute. Men make us like this. We all start out dreaming of a fairy tale, but most of us don't achieve it. Even doing what I did, I was still special. I was still a good girl in my head. Then you came along and made me want to be a really good girl again. Barry, you made me stop all this. You are everything I have ever dreamed of and more. You always made me feel special. I always knew how much you loved me, and you continue to confirm it. Your words about how you would never trade me for Aubrey or anyone else made me realize again how much you truly love me and how much I have to lose. For a while, before we moved here, it was just you and me against the world. There was no one I could regularly compare myself to. And then we moved here and became part of the area. There are only 4 couples here, and again I was the fattest. When we had barbecues or parties, no matter what I wore or how hard I tried to look my best, I was always the most unattractive. And I wanted people to pay attention to me too. Jay is a real liar and womanizer. He started flirting with me a long time ago. All he really wanted was to get to my breasts. So I started playing this game. I started flirting back and letting him glance at them. I know I shouldn't have done this, but damn it, Barry, I'm human too. I want to be wanted too. After all, he came one day when you were not at home. He probably got me a little more drunk than I should have been allowed, but we ended up having sex. A few days after that, Aubrey stopped talking to me and him too. Wally and Bart kind of got into it, and they all started using me to try things they'd heard about but never done. For me, it was like going back to my student days. Only this time I had the best of both worlds. On the one hand, I had you who loved me, praised me, and made me feel loved and cared for. On the other hand, it was as if I didn't have to give up what I was getting in college. Until this started, I thought I couldn't have it both ways. And when I thought I couldn't have it both ways, I chose you. Always remember this, Barry, I chose you. But the last year has taught me that, as Bart and Christy say, there's no reason I can't have it both ways. Until this morning, you loved me and thought I was special. The way you look at me now hurts me more than anything. You look at me like I'm a piece of shit. I didn't do anything today that I haven't done in a long time. The only thing that has changed is the way you think about me now, and it hurts. I'd really like you to think about this. I will always put you first, but I like it when they want me. But again, our marriage will always come first. However, this is something I would like to explore. Maybe you'll even join. But Barry, if you say no, I'll stop this immediately. I don't want a divorce. I want us to be together forever. I want us to grow old and visit our grandchildren and do all these stupid things. I don't care what you want, Iris, I said. I can barely look at you now. I want to hit you as you stand here. I don't even see you as a woman, let alone my wife. But to answer your question, do what you want. Our marriage cannot be saved. I'm not giving you permission to do this, but you're a grown woman. You don't need my permission. However, I will never have sex with you again. Barry, that's not what you mean, she said. I will stop, I swear. I'll make an appointment with a marriage counselor. Please, Barry, give me another chance. It was brilliant. This whole counseling thing would have given me time to put my plan into action. Okay, I said. Maybe counseling will help us. I'll start moving back into our room, she smiled. No, I said more harshly than I intended. Maybe if we get through this, but not until then. Barry, this could take weeks, maybe even months, she whined. So what? I snapped. It may also not work at all. I don't make any promises. We can still get divorced, but you brought us to this point. You had a choice between being the wife I loved and adored, or just being some fat woman of easy virtue. In my opinion, you chose the wrong one. And listening to your lovers talk about you, are you sure it was worth it? But Barry, can't we just sleep together? We don't have to have sex. I just need to be close to you, she whined. But I can't be around you, I said. The next morning I woke up and immediately noticed that I was alone in my bed. At first I missed not having Iris around, and the sadness was almost unbearable until I reminded myself why I was alone. I got dressed and went down to the kitchen. Iris was there, preparing breakfast. She was wearing one of my favorite nightgowns and somehow forgot to button the front. Her breasts swung freely as she cooked. She turned around as if she hadn't noticed me entering the kitchen. I laughed inside. Her actions and motives were very clear. I wondered when she became so manipulative. Apparently, she was no longer the wonderful, simple-minded woman I had fallen in love with. Perhaps that wasn't the case. Perhaps she was always like this, and I was just too blind to see it. I laughed again, this time out loud. Only now I laughed at myself. What's so funny, dear? She smiled. Is it something I did, or maybe something you saw? That's not what you did, I said. And I tried really hard not to look at things after what I saw yesterday. She winced at my words, but tried again. I took an apple from the counter, and she looked at me suspiciously. So will you tell me what you laughed at? She asked. I could use a good laugh, too. I just thought that if you had come downstairs like that last week, I probably wouldn't have gone to work at all, I said. She smiled hearing this. It's not that funny, she said. I think it's very nice. The funny thing is that you think I'll buy it now, I laughed. I took my briefcase and headed towards the door. Don't you want to have breakfast? She asked. I thought we could talk. I have no appetite, I said. Well, you're early. Can we talk anyway? She asked. I think we said all I can bear yesterday, I said. But I had a lot of time to think last night, she said, and I changed my mind on some things. As she said this, she was standing right in front of me, showing almost a foot of plunging cleavage. I smiled and walked around her. Barry, we can't get through this if we don't talk, she said. I'm not sure I want to get over this at all, I said. Sorry if I don't act like the version of me in your head when you thought about it, but I'm a real person. I have my own needs and feelings, and I must act accordingly. So maybe you should stop trying to predict how I'll behave. I won't be so easily manipulated anymore. Barry, I don't want to manipulate you. I just want to atone for my guilt. I just want us to talk about this. You won't make it until we overcome the pain. We could always talk about everything. Besides being married, we were best friends. Last night was the worst night of my life. I'm starting to realize how much I've hurt you with my dishonesty. I want to make things right so we can move on, she said. I put down my briefcase and apple and turned to her. Then I started clapping my hands. Great speech, I said. You must have rehearsed it for hours. But Iris, this is not something you can just get over. There's no ticking clock here. It may take me a few weeks before I want to see you again. It may be months before I can sit down and talk to you without feeling like I'm going to throw up. Or I'll just come home today and put a stack of divorce papers in your hands. I don't know. Judging by what you said yesterday, this is what you got used to back in college. I guess I thought what we were doing was much more special. I really thought there was something magical between us. Now I see that I'm just another name on your list. I may be the one paying for it all, but at the end of the day, I'm just another one of your lovers. And I'm the dumbest, because not only am I the only one who didn't realize it was just sex, I'm the only one who was dumb enough to love you and think you were special. But, she began. No buts, Iris, I said. You tore my heart out. Now I have to learn to re-look at everything I thought I knew. This is a whole new world for me, Iris. I have to re-evaluate everything I see and do. I'm like a baby starting all over again from scratch, and believe me, there will be big changes. But Barry, I already told you, she began again. Iris, you no longer have the right to talk nonsense to me, I snapped. My tone became angrier with every minute of our conversation. Barry, nothing has changed, she said softly. I still love you with all my heart. I just slipped up, Barry. I am human. I didn't do anything criminal. I just broke the rules by which we live. I was also dishonest with you by doing this. It's like your damn football games. One team violates the rules of the game and therefore receives a fine. They move the ball halfway to the target and try again. After a few games, this is forgotten. The main thing that both teams want remains the same. They both want to win the damn game. I love you, Barry. I love you. And you are hurting now, but you love me too. It would be foolish to throw away everything we've built because of one rule violation. Give me a fine so we can get through this. Nothing changed. We are still the same people. There is nothing we cannot overcome. Another great and passionate speech, I said. This time you even managed to use football. But again, you're wrong, Iris. Now I see everything differently. My job is different now, Iris. I'm going to the same damn building and doing the same damn things, Iris. But this is different because I used to go out there and bust my ass to be successful and provide for the S. So that you have good things and so that we can do what we want. But now I'm not sure it matters, so why should I bust my ass? And if I do bust my ass, why the hell should it be for you? I looked at her, and she almost stepped back. I need to look at everything again, Iris. Since I graduated from college, everything I have seen has been viewed in terms of how it fits into our lives. It was all about the S, Iris. But if we are not there, then everything needs to be re-evaluated. It's different, Iris. You are a different person than I thought. It's like my Iris died, leaving you in her place, and I'm not sure I want you. Iris staggered to the table and sat down heavily. This is not just breaking the rules in some cosmic football game, Iris. What you did was not a violation or a misdemeanor. It was a devaluation, perhaps even an annulment, not of the rules of the game, Iris, but of our marriage. What you did completely annulled our marriage. The reasons we got married simply weren't what I thought they were. Perhaps they never were. So the question remains, why are we married? Iris lowered her head to the table. Iris, you tried to be mature and adult about all of this. I respect you for this. But you said several times that you didn't really do anything wrong. It's like you think the only bad thing about this is that you didn't check with me before you went and started having sex with our neighbors. I totally agree with you that a woman has the right to do whatever she wants with her body. But when we got married, we both agreed to follow certain rules. I think the priest called them vows. If you didn't believe in them, why did you bother with them? Find us a therapist quickly, Iris. If you don't, we might not need one. I took my briefcase and left. The work went without incident. I was looking through my files and found the number of an attorney I worked with who represented one of the wealthiest businessmen in our state. He was recently in the news because one of his deals fell through. He tried to build a shopping center next to a nice suburban area and was nearly tarred and feathered by neighborhood groups, environmentalists, and small business groups. I have an idea. I asked the lawyer to contact his boss. I didn't tell him what it was about, but I hoped his boss remembered me well enough to agree to the meeting. I also made an appointment with the best divorce lawyer I could find. This guy was like napalm, judging by his reputation. It spread throughout the entire divorce and burned everything it touched. A few hours later, I finished work for the day. For the first time in my memory, I didn't want to go home. What's left for me? I was thinking about going to a bar with the guys from work, but decided to put it off for at least one day. I will need to start developing new friendships, but I can start that tomorrow. I parked in the driveway and turned off the Mustang's ignition. I entered the house as quietly as I could. I put my briefcase down and sat down on the sofa in the living room. I exhaled all the air I was holding and tried to release all the tension with it. I closed my eyes and focused on just relaxing. I think I almost dozed off. Then I felt a pair of soft hands start massaging my shoulders. It was divine. "Get your damn hands off me," I said in the coldest voice I could muster. I abruptly stood up from the sofa and looked at the suffering written on Iris's face. "I was just trying to make you feel better," she said, gathering her courage. "You look like you had a hard day at work." "Iris, my day at work was normal. This homecoming created all the tension," I said. She lowered her eyes. "When do you want to have dinner?" she asked. "I'm not sure if you want to wait until you've run or if you want something before then." "Iris, just do or cook what you like when you want it," I said. "Isn't that how you looked at our marriage?" I went upstairs and changed into light sweatpants and a light hoodie. I put on my favorite Asics sneakers and headed outside. Iris watched me as I left the house. "Be careful," she said quietly. I pretended I didn't hear her. As soon as I stepped out onto the porch, Aubrey appeared. She smiled at me and came over. "Your run today is going to be terrible," she said. "I know," I said. "Usually my runs on Mondays are just to get the blood in my legs again after a long run on Sunday. On Mondays, I'm usually stiff, so I run slowly and leisurely." "That's not what I'm talking about," she said, still smiling. "You will run even slower than usual and perhaps even walk." I looked at her funny because I was kind of an exercise snob. I always waved to other runners along the way, but barely noticed the walkers. The thought of walking on my own seemed absurd, but she looked at me and smiled, and her smile seemed to take away some of the anger I was holding inside. "Okay, why would I do this?" I asked. "Because I'm coming with you," she said. "Let's go." And so we started running. I noticed Jay wince in his doorway as we ran, and I also noticed that all the eyes on the street were on us again as we slowly, God, so slowly, ran down the street. I was sure that if we had run any slower, we would have gone backwards, but I stuck it out. The smile on her face was reward enough to overcome any disappointment at our slow speed. "Jay wanted to," she began, then slowed down and began to walk. She took my hand, thinking that I would run further without her. "Okay, I ran 1 block," she said. "This run is much more difficult than my aerobic videos." I just smiled and nodded. We probably started too fast for me, she said, breathing heavily. Deep down, I felt fear. It was a deep, piercing fear. It's impossible for me to run even slower without falling asleep. Jay wanted to try talking to you again today, she said. He thought you'd had enough time to calm down and that now maybe you'd be ready to talk. We walked side by side, and the pace was fast for walking, but she managed well. Bart convinced him to wait a few days before approaching you again. He said you are in a lot of pain, and it will take time. Plus, they all remember how you said that the next time they come to your house, you will shoot them. She smiled again, and I noticed that she was still holding my hand. Do you have a gun? She asked. Of course there is, I said. It was my father's gun. He worked in Army intelligence. He got it while working in the Army, hunting down spies. This is a pretty big gun. Which? She asked. Well, it's kind of rare, I said. I don't think they make them anymore. Is this one of those old long-barreled .38s? She asked. No, it's .45, I said. Probably the most powerful .45 I've ever shot. When you hit something with this gun, it doesn't make a hole. Things just explode. Is this a Colt .45? She asked. No, this is an automatic pistol designed specifically for the U.S. government, I said. This is one of those custom federal designer samples that were issued to intelligence operators. Stories have been written about them. I've never heard of this, she smiled at me. I thought my father knew a lot about pistols, but I haven't heard about this. Maybe my father knows. Yes, I grinned. Ask him. I'm sure your father has read stories about the FD-45. As we walked, she seemed unwilling to let go of my hand. We walked around the park for a while when she pulled me to a bench and we sat down. She wiggled her legs a little and stretched. The guy who was slowly running along the path crashed into a pole while looking at her. I laughed, but didn't tell her about it. Jay told me to stay away from you, she smiled. It looks like it worked, I smiled back at her. Aubrey, what do you want to achieve here? I mean, what's your end result? I understand what I'm going to do, but I don't want you to get hurt by this, so I need to know where you want your life to go after this. Barry, I hate Jay so much I can feel it. I don't want him to die, but I'm ready for everything else. Yesterday I decided to divorce him, but it's still not quite right. He took all my hopes and dreams and destroyed them and me. I want my dose of revenge too. Especially if I divorce him, I won't get a penny. I'll probably have to go back and live with my parents for a while, but even that is better than putting up with this any longer. I've been a waitress before, and it didn't kill me. I can do this again. Aubrey, in a divorce, you're probably entitled to half the assets, I said. So I had to find a good crooked lawyer who knows all about hiding assets and such. I don't want to pay Iris for ruining my life. She has a higher education. She can get a job. Barry, that's the point, she said. Jay is like a big city cowboy. He only has a hat, but no cattle. Even the Camaro he drives is leased. He's friends with the dealer, so there are no dealer plates on the car. But if Jay misses one paycheck, we'll be screwed. We can barely pay our mortgage now. If Jem and I get divorced, neither of us will get a penny. We don't even have enough money to be poor. I have nothing to lose. I told her my plan, and she started laughing. She added a few things I hadn't thought of, and we shook hands. We looked into each other's eyes and said what we were both thinking. This is the end of our neighborhood. Our plan seemed to create a new sense of intimacy between us, in addition to giving us what we both craved: revenge on our cheating spouses. We walked back along our street. While we were walking, Christy came out to meet us. Where have you been? She asked sweetly. We went for a run, I said. Is that what they call it now? She laughed. I just wanted you to know that I agree with Bart's proposal that he made to you yesterday. You're probably too tired today after your run, but you can keep me in mind. Then she returned to her porch to her children. I noticed that Aubrey didn't say a word while Christy was around. What does it mean? She asked. I explained to her the proposal to Christy that Bart had made the day before. Aubrey's eyes narrowed, and she looked at Christy. I decided to change the subject. Here's the text with special characters removed. Are you hungry? I asked. She nodded. Okay, how do you like the idea of taking a shower and then having a steak dinner on my balcony? Very, very good, she said. Her smile returned and she walked into her house. I ran into my house and up the stairs, skipping 2 steps at a time, straight into the shower. I actually bounced on my way back down the stairs. Iris stood up from the couch and walked over to me. You seem to be in a better mood, she said. Ken. I walked past her and went out into the garden. I looked around and realized that I needed to get the meat first. I was looking in the freezer when Iris came up behind me. What are you looking for? I've already prepared dinner for you, dear, she said. I cooked pasta. You always love it because it replenishes the glycogen in your muscles that gets lost after a long run. I was thinking about what you suggested yesterday, I said. I think you should be free to explore your affair to the limits of your curiosity. Thanks, she said, but I don't want this anymore. I want to work on repairing our marriage. I really think you should try this, I said. I think you should get over this completely. At the very least, find out what you like and what you don't. Try a few different things, who knows, it might come in handy. This could be good for both of us. Are you thinking about participating? She asked. Her face lit up, and I knew I had made the right decision. Hell no, I snapped. If I treat you so badly that I can barely stand to be in the same room with you, why would I want to watch someone have sex with you, let alone do it myself? It's like I hit her. She came up to me and was angry. I know what's the matter. You're just giving me permission because you want Aubrey. Jay was right to be afraid. You just think that if I'm allowed to sleep with guys, then you can have your share with Aubrey. Forget it. I already told you I'm no longer interested in this. It cost me too much. I just laughed. Barry, you're looking at this wrong. Nothing happens between me and anyone else except you from now on. Yesterday it all ended. I will never make this mistake again. Did you notice how easy it was for me to just stop it like that? There have never been any emotional attachments or romantic feelings between me and guys or vice versa. What we did was not about romance, it was only about sex. They don't want a future with me. They all love their wives, and I love you. Neither of us wanted to risk our marriages, it was just for fun. Do you think I had fun, Iris? I shouted. Then I just turned away from her and collected myself. Why are you taking out 2 steaks? She asked. Do you want me to have dinner with you? One for Aubrey, I said. Jay was right, she hissed. I don't want you to spend time with her. You two don't know how to do it right. You are too emotional. You'll end up falling in love with each other or something. She's not even your type. What do you mean she's not my type? I asked. I don't have a type. I'm your type, she said. So my type is a lying, deceptive woman of easy virtue. I asked. Okay, you're right, she's not like that. What I meant was that she's not built the way you like women, she said. Iris, you're dumber than I thought, I said. I don't like someone for their appearance. I loved you for the person I thought you were. I loved our conversations, our shared values, and 1,000 other things about you that were just beautiful. I wouldn't care if you weigh 80 pounds or 800 pounds. I fell in love with a man I thought I knew. It's like algebra, Iris. I loved you. You have big breasts. That's why I love big breasts. I didn't just go out and decide I only liked big women. It would be stupid. I just admired and learned to appreciate all the things you had because I loved you. I could just as easily fall in love with someone with a slim, sexy body as I could with someone with a larger body. Barry, why do you keep talking in the past tense? She asked. Iris, a big part of me died yesterday. I told you this morning that it all started again. Now, when I look at you, all I see is you cheating on me. I'm not sure I can handle this. But you have to, she cried. Why? I asked. Life will go on whether we are together or not. I'm not trying to be tough or cruel, Iris, but sometimes you can hurt someone so badly that they simply cannot recover. Look at Aubrey. Look what you and the boys did to her. When we first moved here, she was one of the nicest people we knew. Look how she acted for a whole damn year because of how much fun you all had. Can you imagine how she suffered all this time, hoping Jay would stop? In the end, she just fell out of love with Jay. You just knocked all the love out of her with your fun. But Jay still loves her, Iris said. He's going crazy now. He thinks that you two will start sleeping together and that you will take her away from him. Remember all those hurtful things he said last night? Remember how he said that trading for her wasn't a fair deal? Remember, you said the same thing. You said that if you had a choice, you would never agree to something like that. Iris, that's what you and that bastard Jay don't understand, I barked. Aubrey and I had no choice. No one came to us and said, "Hey, Barry, do you want to try female swapping? It'll be fun, Barry. I'll be with Iris, and you can have some real sex with Aubrey, and then we'll switch back." Nobody said that, Iris. Neither Aubrey nor I received such a message. So now that it's all gone, you and Jay and the rest of the Musketeers want to talk about choices and what you want or don't want to happen. But it's not your turn to choose, Iris. You and Jay have already made your choice, and now you are unhappy with your choice. It's unpleasant, isn't it? Iris just sat at our kitchen table with her head down. She seemed to really think about what I said. I heard footsteps on the back porch. When I opened the door, I turned to Iris. "Iris," I said softly. She raised her head and looked at me with eyes full of tears. "Are you still having fun?" Aubrey and I sat on my deck grilling our steaks. We laughed and talked and had a great evening, as if we didn't notice that Jay and Iris were looking at us from their windows. One interesting thing happened that night. Debbie came to us. She wanted to talk to us about something. Volley, of course, came up with an excuse to go to Jay. They both sat by the window, so angry that they could chew nails. One day, when I saw them looking at me, I raised my hand as if it were a gun. I pretended to shoot, and the window slammed shut. At first, Aubrey didn't talk to Debbie either, but it soon became clear to even her that Debbie really didn't know anything about what was going on. We decided not to tell her anything yet because we didn't know how she would react. The rest of the week was similar, except I was finally able to get out and actually run. Aubrey borrowed Debbie's bike. There were even a few nights where I ran slower than I could so she could ride in front of me. I have to admit that Aubrey's ass is a work of art. I spent a lot of time wanting to be the seat of her bike. Friday came, and we decided it was time to let Jay, Iris, and company find out what punishment awaited them. I told Iris, and she told everyone else, that we would have a meeting on Sunday, right after the Lions game. On Sunday morning, I went for a long run. I ran 22 miles and felt good, but tired. I have to admit that I missed Aubrey during my run, but I didn't know what to do about it. When I got home, Iris had prepared something for me to eat, and, as had become the norm, I walked past her. My legs were so tired that I could barely move without cramping and straining. I took a shower and started stretching. A few of my friends from work arrived shortly after, and I ordered pizza and showed them around my living room. When the pizza delivery guy arrived, I noticed Jay and Volley sitting nervously on Jay's porch. They smiled when they saw that I ordered 3 large pizzas. They thought that since I almost never ate more than 2 bites, even after a particularly hard run, that everything was back to normal. I nodded politely to them and turned to go back into the house. Right before the game started, the doorbell rang. I apologized and went to open the door. I saw Jay, Wally, and Bart standing on my porch. Apparently, they didn't notice the other cars in my driveway. "You're early," I said. "The meeting is not before the end of the game." Aubrey walked up onto the porch just then. She was wearing the tightest tank top I've ever seen. Her breasts weren't as big as Iris's, but they looked huge on her small body. It was obvious that she wasn't wearing a bra. She was also wearing shorts that were so tight and short that even Daisy Duke would have complained about them. She carried another plate of cookies. She entered the house through the door that I held open. Wally and Bart gulped loudly, and Jay looked like he was about to lay an egg. "Well, guys," I said, "see you after the game." "Why did you order so much pizza for 2 people?" Volley asked. Before I could answer, Derek Coleman, one of my colleagues, came out of the living room. Barry, there's a girl sitting in your chair. I mean, a woman, and it's not your wife. The guys and I are interested. Be polite to her, I said. She is also my friend. She's watching the game with us. He shook his head, then turned to go back to the living room. How are we supposed to watch TV with her there? He muttered. Jay became even angrier after hearing this. Do you have guests to watch the game? Bart asked. Of course, the best way to enjoy something is to share it with friends. Isn't that what you did to my wife, Jay? He boiled when he heard my question. Anyway, I thought I had friends, but it turned out that these are not the people I should associate with. So I found new friends. See you at 4:30. I closed the door with a loud knock. I watched the game with 3 guys from work. They were eating pizza and yelling at the game, but I noticed that most of their attention was directed at Aubrey. They wanted to know who she was and how I knew her. Only a few of them knew that I was having problems in my marriage. Of course, my football buddies had already met her and told everyone about her over the past few weeks, but few were prepared for the reality. Aubrey seemed to be having a great time too. After dinner, the dancing began. I'm not the best dancer, but we got a lot of attention. Aubrey was asked to dance several times, and she turned everyone down. He gets very jealous, she told them. He really doesn't like sharing his toys. Things got heated in the car on the way home. So are you ready? I mistakenly asked her. I've been ready for several weeks, she said. Have you chosen a place? There's not enough space in your car. I've heard that young people do it in the back seat, but I don't think both of us can fit in there. I was talking about tomorrow, I laughed. Tomorrow the real show will finally begin, she laughed. All this will end soon. Debbie is so angry at Wally that she can barely look at him. I wish we could deal with Wally first to ease her suffering. I'd like to deal with Iris first to ease my suffering, I said. I checked the cameras. Did you know that yesterday she was with him again? I'm no longer interested in this horny guy's sex, she said. I'll just be glad when he stops following me around and trying to persuade me to play with him. Besides, we need to worry about our own sex lives. Aubrey, you're too special to just roll in the hay, I smiled. You're the kind of girl who should be. I'm not as special as you think, she said, running her hand over me. I am an ordinary girl. Don't try to turn me into someone I'm not, and you can take me wherever you want, to the hay or anywhere else. Aubrey, I'm serious, I said. Me too, she said, putting her hand over my mouth to calm me down. When this nonsense is over, I want us to stay together, she said. So I need to claim you before that Christy bitch tries to. Aubrey, Christy is a woman of easy virtue, just like Iris, I laughed. Well, well, she said. Christy is much thinner than Iris. I couldn't stop laughing. I don't really have any panties on, she said. As we pulled into the driveway and I walked her to the door, all the neighbors' eyes were on us, as usual. I hugged her and kissed her. I was going to just take a bite, but Aubrey had other plans. She hugged me and pulled me towards her. Almost too soon, we were pushed apart when Jay opened the front door like a father checking on his teenage daughter. Aubrey and I barely noticed him there. A line had been crossed between us. I still don't understand how I managed to leave her that night, but we both knew that everything had changed. Walking into the house, I noticed Iris sitting in the kitchen. I looked at her and smiled. How is she? She asked angrily. Is she better in bed than me? I really don't think so. Jay told me she was kind of boring. I may not be as beautiful as her, but I am much better at sex. I would do everything you ever wanted to try if you would only give me a chance. If she's so terrible in bed, why is Jay so desperate to get her back? I asked. He loves her, Iris snapped. He can't forget her, just like I can't forget you. If he loves her so much, and you love me, then why were you with him yesterday? I asked. She looked scared. We have cameras in both houses, I said. This will all end soon. But, she began. Iris, just save it, I said. We really don't care. Aubrey and I were just trying to give you two a chance to get us back. I think you guys need sex more than love. Someday you will become a lonely old woman. I left her standing and crying. The next morning, bright and early, I woke up to the sound of hammering. I looked out the window and saw Jay standing on the stairs, putting out Christmas decorations. Aubrey guided him from the ground below. As I watched, he struggled to get a large lighted inflatable Santa on the roof. As I left the house to start my run, I waved to Aubrey. She blew me a kiss. Jay smiled and waved at me. "Are you going to run away with me?" I asked. Iris walked out onto our porch. She looked like hell. "Barry, I can't," Aubrey said. "Last night was the most magical night of my life. It was truly magical, but I have to seriously think about it. I'm going back to my husband." "Well, I hope you'll be happy," I smiled. As I went for a run, I saw Bart and Christy heading towards Jay's house. There were even children with them. Wally and Deb were going there too. Deb waved to me as I ran past. Wally waved too. I waved and said hi to Deb and ignored Wally. When I reached the corner, I stopped running. I snuck into Wally's garage and grabbed a bucket of chemicals that Aubrey had ordered online. With Deb's help, she ordered chemical accelerators using Wally's credit card. We also hid some of the chemicals in the trunk of Wally's car. I quickly coated the deck around Wally's BBQ with chemicals. I also sprayed chemicals on the awning near the deck and the side of Wally's house. The chemicals should have dried completely in about half an hour. Aubrey needed to keep them occupied during this time. When I got home from my run, Aubrey and Jay were sitting on their porch talking. "Aubrey and I have it all worked out, buddy," Jay said. "Well, screw you," I said. I went into the house and took a shower. As I was getting dressed, Iris came into my room. "Jay and Aubrey made up," she said. "Everyone is talking about it. She even promised to let him have sex with her if he did everything she said today." "Great for them," I snapped. "Barry, if she can forgive him and give him another chance, why can't we try again?" she asked. "I promise this will never happen again." I just looked at her and laughed. "Iris, you promised me this weeks ago, and you were still with Barry yesterday. I don't believe a single word you say. I see us on the road to divorce, but I promise to be as fair to you as you deserve." As I finished getting dressed, Iris watched me nervously. I think she thought I would leave then. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I have to go to work for a while," I said. "There's a problem with one of our trucks." She turned and left. As I was leaving the house, I saw her walking towards Jay. "Get away from me, Iris," he barked at her. "Everything is over." Aubrey left the house, and she and Jay sat on their porch. She didn't even look at me. She got in Jay's truck, and they left about the same time I left. I drove through town and picked up one of our mobile generator trucks. These trucks were regular Ford F-150s, but with powerful commercial generators mounted on the back. My friend was watching the warehouse today. I told him I needed a generator to power an outdoor Christmas show. No paperwork or recording, so neither of us will get into trouble. But I owed him a favor. While I was away, I contacted my partner to let him know that I would soon be ready to start our new business. Mr. Reynolds' lawyer contacted me a few weeks ago and arranged a meeting between us. He liked my idea and wanted to go for it if I could provide the required areas. When I got home, I parked the generator truck behind the house where no one would see it. I jumped over the fence and went into Jay's backyard. Aubrey left the back door open, and I walked into the house. I went upstairs and walked out onto their back balcony. I climbed up to their roof where I turned off one of the lights on the giant Santa. That one light meant that poor Santa wouldn't turn on. I attached 2 thick cables to Santa and sprinkled water around him. I made sure that the wires attached to Santa were also exposed in several places. Then I went back down to the balcony. From there, he returned through the house back to his yard. I ran the cables and connected them to the generator. A short time later, I heard Jay's truck pull into their driveway. He and Aubrey were arguing. He wanted to take her for a ride in his Camaro, but she made him go in the truck. He complained that she was still acting like a bitch and ordering him around. "You should be happy that I'm even thinking about taking you back," she screamed. "So don't start whining about your damn car. I should have made you give the damn thing to Barry, but I knew he wouldn't want it. And if you're even thinking about getting between my legs tonight, you better make sure my jewelry is the best on the street." "They're the only ones on the street," Jay snapped. "So that makes them the best until someone else comes up with theirs. Why are you acting like a bitch? You've never talked to Barry like that." "Because I love Barry," she said. "I'm just married to you." I think I was more shocked than Jay. He was furious, but I was shocked. He turned away from her angrily. "I'll go check your damn lights," he snapped. For the first time, I noticed how small our little neighborhood really was. Everyone heard the argument and came out to see what it was about. I quickly ran out the back of my house and started the generator. Then I returned to the house and sat down in the kitchen. "Aubrey is evil," Iris said from behind me. "I talked to her before. You didn't have sex with her last night. She really wanted to, but you refused her." "Do you have anything to say, Iris?" I asked coldly. "You're really mad at me, but you turned her down because deep down you still love me," she said. "Even after all the mistakes I've made, you still love me. We have hope." "No, Iris," I said evenly. "I'm just not a woman of easy virtue. I'm not going to mess up our divorce by sleeping with another woman before filing." She went outside. I heard Jay complaining about the stupid decorations through the door. I went out and sat on the porch, waiting for the inevitable. Bart waved to me from across the street. I pretended not to notice. I didn't pay attention as Jay walked up his rickety stairs while Aubrey screamed at him from below. Debbie and Christy stood next to her. Jay made it to the roof and stood next to Santa. He grabbed Santa, touched one of the exposed wires, and suddenly began twitching convulsively on the edge of the roof. Sparks flew from the wires and Jay fell off the roof. He didn't even scream. He hit the ladder, knocking it to the side, and fell awkwardly in front of Aubrey, Christy, and Debbie. All three women immediately began screaming. Bart ran to Jay. "Barry, call 911, he yelled at me. I nodded and ran into the house. I ran out the back and disconnected the cables from the generator. I then called 911 from my cell phone. Jay still hasn't regained consciousness. When the ambulance arrived, I left the house and returned the truck to the warehouse. Well, I thought, things didn't go according to plan. Jay shouldn't have fallen off the roof. He should have just ruined the decorations so Aubrey could get mad at him. I was sure Aubrey would be very angry. Oh well, that part of the plan was hers. She really hated Jay. The only person I thought hated that bastard as much as I did. But all I wanted to do was make him foreclose on his mortgage and lose his house. A few hours later, Aubrey returned from the hospital. She came straight to me. "Jay has serious electrical burns and a broken back," she said. "Not exactly what we planned, but I'll accept it." "One ready, three left," she smiled. Then I decided never to anger this woman. However, there was something I wanted to know. "Aubrey, can I ask you something?" I said quietly. She smiled and nodded. "I already know what you want to ask," she said. "I pretty much ruined everything today, didn't I?" I looked at her. "Barry, you only found out a few weeks ago that Iris was cheating on you. I had a lot more time. For a long time I was alone, although surrounded by people. And a few weeks ago you became my friend. You are the best person I know. You are exactly what I always hoped Jay would be. So yeah, I'm sorry I almost ruined our plan. But I don't know how to hide or be cunning. When I feel something, it comes out and I tell the truth. And I don't care who heard it or who knows it. So you'll have to get used to hearing it. I love you." Life in the area has become interesting. Iris began to drink and eat much more than she should. Wally was still walking on tiptoes. Deb continued to pretend that nothing was happening. She was ready to divorce Wally and had already secretly moved a lot of her things out of the house. She had to be ready for our plan when this happened. We've all gathered to discuss Jay's accident. Deb suggested we have a barbecue to discuss how we could help Jay and Aubrey. This was the norm for us because Wally loved barbecue. He had the biggest and most expensive grill in the area. I told them I didn't care about helping Jay, but I would be happy to help Aubrey. I bet, Iris snorted angrily. So the next day, Deb and Wally had a barbecue, which was attended by Bart and Christy, Iris and I, and Aubrey, who came from the hospital where she was visiting Jay. Wally declared the barbecue officially open and lit the grill. Within seconds, flames were racing out of control from the grill to the awning above it and into the house. Wally ran for the hose, but nothing worked because Deb had turned off the water at the valve inside the house. Bart called the fire department, but by the time they arrived, the entire house was already on fire. The firefighters fought bravely, but the house was lost. A few days later, the police came and arrested Wally on suspicion of arson. Deb filed for divorce while Wally was in prison. I think Wally really believed that Deb was setting him up for having sex with Iris. The insurance company paid her part of the value of their home because she was not involved in the arson. Wally, of course, claimed that he had been framed, but the police had too much evidence against him. He eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years. If he had gone to trial, the sentence would have been twice as long. A wealthy developer, Ryan Reynolds, bought the site. He arranged for the remains of Wally's house to be demolished. However, the demolition crew mistakenly demolished another house. When Bart and Christy and their children arrived home, their house had been demolished. The team was already starting to load garbage into several large dump trucks when Bart arrived. He was furious. Aubrey allowed them to stay with her for a few days until they decided what to do. They had terrible luck. Wally was their accountant. Somehow their insurance policy expired while they were trying to get a new one. Ryan Reynolds has come to the rescue again. He agreed to pay Bart and Christy the appraised value of their property. Unfortunately, the real estate market was down, so they received much less than they invested in the property. Every day when Aubrey returned from the hospital, she told me that Jay wanted to see me. Finally, about 3 weeks after the accident, I agreed to go. He looked terrible. He had lost a lot of weight and could barely move his arms. "Hey, buddy," he said. "Thanks for coming." He looked at Aubrey. "Honey, could you leave us for a moment?" "I already told you not to call me anything other than my name is Jay," she said. She smiled as she said this. She smiled in a way that only someone who truly hates you can when you're downstairs. "My name is Aubrey. Don't call me anything else." She smiled at me as she closed the door. "She's definitely going to leave me," Jay said sadly. "This is entirely your fault, Jay," I snapped. "What do you want?" "Well, everyone else in the area came to see me except you," he began. "I really missed you and I kind of needed a favor. It's times like these that you realize who you can really count on." I just looked at him and started tapping my foot. "Barry, I have a problem," he began. "I'm a little behind on my mortgage payments." "Damn, Jay, you're on time everywhere," I grinned. He sighed and tried to continue. "Yesterday, we received a notification that the bank wants to seize the house. I either have to pay the full amount or I'll end up on the street." "Why don't you sell the Camaro?" I asked. "It's on lease," he said sadly. "They already took it when I missed the last payment." I looked at him and laughed. Then suddenly I noticed that his legs weren't moving at all. "Jay, what's wrong with your legs?" I asked. "Barry, when I broke my back, I lost the use of my legs. My arm strength and control is improving, but they say I will never walk again. I have no sensitivity below the waist. The most I can hope for is that I can sit up on my own. Most likely, I will be in a wheelchair. I will be on permanent total disability when I am discharged from the hospital. But it still won't save my house, and it won't save my marriage either." "I'll try to do something for you," I said. I felt like crap. I wanted revenge for what happened and ruined my marriage, but how much did it take to be enough? I burned down Wally's house. He was in prison. What Wally regretted most was not being in prison and losing his career. It's not like he lost his house and got a criminal record. It was Deb's loss. Bart and Christy's marriage was so damaged that they regularly had sex with other people. They still lost their home, and rumor has it that the place they were hoping to move to wasn't that nice. According to Iris, things weren't going very well for them either. She was sure that divorce was in their future. My best friend Jay has lost the ability to walk and will soon be homeless. Aubrey and I allowed our anger and pain to turn us into monsters. And the worst part was that the person I should have felt the most anger towards had still not been punished. Iris was the person who truly betrayed me, and she still walked freely. It was she who swore to be faithful to me, but nothing with her, it's not happened. The problem was that when I looked at Jay, all my anger just melted away. I didn't want to hurt anyone anymore. I just wanted to move on with my life and find peace. I had no idea how to cope with my new feelings when I left Jay's hospital room. Before I could take 2 steps from the door, Aubrey was next to me. "What happened, dear?" she asked. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Barry, I can feel it when you're upset," she said sincerely. "You're really suffering right now." "What about Jay's suffering?" I asked. "Jay, what?" she asked. She smiled as she said this. I was about to say something, but she smiled and let me know that she understood. "Maybe, and I'm just saying, maybe we went a little overboard with our revenge on Jay," she said. "But it's really hard to feel sympathy for a person who fills your head with lie after lie. He was my first man, took me away from my family, and made many promises, but did not fulfill any of them." Her face was very sad. "Maybe I went overboard, but you don't know what it's like to have someone complain about everything you do. He never cared that I was unhappy. All I ever heard was, 'You're not coping well.' We were unhappy before it happened. Barry, I watched how you treated Iris. You treated her like she was the most important thing in the world. And whether you know it or not, she took advantage of you. She was always telling other women how you did everything she said. You looked more like her damned butler than her husband." I thought about it and realized that maybe she was right. So I didn't like the bitch anymore, and I started to resent Jay. So when I saw them together, it just turned into hatred. There were times when I lay awake in bed, dreaming of torturing them. "And now we're so close to hurting them the same way they hurt us," she said. "Just think. The 2 of them would be homeless and destitute. She's too damn lazy to work, and he's disabled. Personally, I don't call it too big. I'm not sure that's enough." I looked at her and saw the rage on her face. "To hell with them," she spat. "To hell with both of them." "Aubrey, what happens next?" I asked. She looked at me in surprise. "Then she began. "What?" I asked again. "What should we do, dear?" She looked at me, and for a second I saw uncertainty in her eyes. Apparently, she didn't think about revenge. "So I guess we'll find some other way to make them even more miserable," I said. "Or maybe we will find other people who have hurt us in our lives and get revenge on them too. My 3rd-grade teacher was a bitch. So what if I couldn't write Mississippi? And who cares if I didn't do it? I don't know where to put the damn commas. If this bitch is still alive, we will go after her. We'll go down to the nursing home and knock the crap out of her chessboard. We won't collect the figures either." Aubrey smiled as she watched me. "Is this what we're going to do for the rest of our lives?" I asked. "What's on your mind?" she asked. I grabbed her and pulled her towards me. I kissed her. "Would you rather spend the rest of our lives taking revenge on others?" I asked. "Forget about them. Let's leave the past behind and move on. We'll just deal with the outstanding issues and move on with our lives. To hell with them. We'll be better off without them. We have each other, and I promise that we will be happy. We won, Aubrey. The game is over, and we won." "I really don't care what we do," she said. "As long as we do it, I'm happy. So let's take care of this unfinished business so we can start doing it." Then we went home. Aubrey still didn't hesitate to leave Jay alone in the hospital. I called Ryan and explained the situation to him. Although it was not part of our original deal, we could make a lot of money from this venture if we could pull it off. Taking over Jay's property would mean we would be home free. He told me that if what I wanted to do would bring us property, he was fine with it. He also invited me to come to his office to look at the preliminary drawings. While Aubrey went to check on the guests at her house, I went to see Iris. I told her it was time for us to talk. She really didn't look very good. All the stress and emotional turmoil we went through took its toll on her. Iris, I always thought you were one of the most beautiful women I know, I said. You're also one of the smartest. She smiled, looking across the table. I wanted to do it as softly as possible. Most of what I wanted to tell her was true. I wanted to massage her ego a little to soften the blow. The last few weeks have been difficult for all of us. We cannot continue down this path. You're unhappy, Iris, and so am I. Sometimes things don't go the way we want, so it becomes necessary. Start again. Then she started crying, and for the first time in weeks I held her hand. I stood up, walked over to her side of the table, and hugged her. You want a divorce, don't you? She asked. I nodded. But we are undergoing consultations to help us correct this, she said. We both know that counseling is a waste of time and money, I said. The cut was too deep. We could never patch it up with a band-aid. But you love me, she said. You love me so much. And that was part of the problem, I said. I loved you so much that I trusted you completely. So when you failed, when you cheated, it pretty much destroyed my faith in us. If I had loved you less, we might have gotten through this. If I thought of you the way Jay and Bart think of their wives, as someone to live with and have sex with, it would be easier to forget. But Jay loves Aubrey, she said. No, Iris. Jay thinks Aubrey belongs to him. She is his property, just like his Camaro. She is something beautiful that he can show off to make himself look cool. But like his car, it is no longer his. So what should we do? She asked. We split everything 50-50, I said, and we tried to remain friends. Why should we do this? She asked. Iris, I still love you. I can't give up on this so quickly. Aubrey had to endure a year of constant humiliation from Jay to do this. I really still love you. Then why can't we stay together? She asked. It won't work because the trust is gone, Iris. After I caught you, it really hurt us. But you didn't stop even then. Love is great, but it is trust and faith in each other that holds people together. But we can take it back, she said. I know we can. I'll just put on one of those ankle bracelets they put on guys on parole. I will never leave the house. We can buy new locks so I can't leave when you're not there and no one can get in. I just shook my head. That's not trust, Iris, I said. It's more like you become the prisoner and I become the overseer. I couldn't live like this, and neither could you. Eventually, we would start to hate each other. But I don't want to lose you, she said. Iris, you've already lost me. But at least this way we are honest with each other, and that is the way to rebuild trust. It will take time, but eventually we can be friends again. And who knows what might happen in the future. What do you want me to do? She asked. Well, I think you'll need a lawyer, I said. We live in a common property state. Most likely, we will split everything in half, 50-50ths. We will have to sell the house and split the proceeds. We'll have to admit it. None of us need a house that size. Besides, all your friends are gone. Wally burned down his house. He and Deb divorced. You could say they took Bart and Christy with them. From what I heard, they are also going to get divorced. Iris shook her head. Jay will lose his home too, I said. I'm sure he and Aubrey will divorce too. We can say that you ruined 4 marriages with your behavior, I said. I shrugged and looked at her with a guilty look, saying, so our area doesn't exist. Iris looked at me with horror on her face. I think what we just talked about made her realize the consequences of her selfish actions. She and her accomplices destroyed 4 families and changed the lives of 10 people. 8 were adults, but 2 children's lives would also be affected. I hope that awareness will bring good changes. Although I tried to give her hope, I knew that we would never be together again. I gave her this little lie about how we could still be friends, and who knows what might happen in the future for 2 reasons. The first was that I was tired of hurting people over this. The second was that the most dangerous opponent is the one who has no hope. As long as she thought we had a chance, Iris would act much more rationally during the divorce process. I thought Jay and Aubrey were back together, at least, Iris said. I doubt that after they made peace just so recently, she will leave him. It is especially difficult to leave when he is injured. Plus, they are now perfect for each other. She's dead in bed, and he's dead from the waist down. I would call it a union made in hell. This will probably be the couple that survives. She laughed an ugly laugh that didn't suit her at all. I'm going to the hospital to see Jay, I said. I have to tell him about the deal I arranged for him. I thought you hated him, she said. Why help him? He destroyed our marriage. She looked at me like I was crazy. Iris, he didn't do it alone. You are a grown woman and can make decisions. All you had to do was say no. Should I try to leave you penniless in the divorce? I'm tired of being angry at everyone. I just want to move on and see what life has in store for me. Everything is over. I went to Aubrey, who lives next door. Christy was collecting children's clothes. They still didn't have much stuff. They already had money for a house, but that wouldn't be enough because they would both have to pay lawyers. They also needed to find 2 new places to live instead of just one. She smiled at me as I entered the room. Hi, handsome, she said. There is time for. Christy, he didn't come to you, Aubrey said from the top of the stairs. The tone of her voice was very sad, and she looked tired. I held out my hand, and she came down and took it. On the way to the hospital, I asked her what happened. You're wrong, darling, she said. I told you we weren't too hard on that bastard. He refuses to give me a divorce. He says we will be together until one of us dies. He told me that, till death do us part bullshit. I laughed out loud and almost lost control of the car. Yes, I said. I told her about the conversation with Iris, and she started crying. I'm glad my misfortune makes you happy, she said. You'll soon be free from this bitch, and I'll be with a man who doesn't love me. He considers me his toy or some kind of trophy. Yes, I said again. Aubrey, Jay can't stop you from divorcing him. The law doesn't work that way. All he can do is delay it. Worst case scenario, you can just leave. Just walk away from him. Life is too short to be unhappy. She pouted and looked at me. But I had plans, she said. I wanted to be with one guy, and he seems obsessed with doing everything right. I can't imagine him wanting to be with a married woman. I think the guy you want loves you enough to accept you in any form, I said. I received in return the biggest, happiest smile I've ever seen. At the hospital, I sat on Jay's bed. I explained to him that the bank was indeed going to seize his property. He was absolutely right about how things would happen. He needed to find the entire mortgage amount, about $90,000, in 2 days. The worst part was that in this difficult real estate market, his house would probably only sell for $60,000. He was seriously in the red. If the bank forecloses, it will also destroy his credit rating. He didn't have a 401k or any savings. He lived practically from paycheck to paycheck. In 2 days, he will be homeless and broke. I told him that I had found a buyer for his house. My buyer was willing to pay the bank and give him $20,000 in cash. It wasn't much, but it was all I could do. He looked at me as if I had saved him from a fate worse than death. Did you hear that, dear? He said to Aubrey. Barry pulled me out of the fire. Now all we have to do is find another place to live. I'll be in the hospital for a couple more weeks, so you'll have a lot of work to do. I already told you not to call me darling or sweetie or anything like that, she snapped. I will help you in exchange for you giving me a divorce. Other than that, I have nothing to tell you. You've been cheating on me for over a year. I'm sorry, but I can't forget this or forgive you. Jay, you need to let me go. Never, he said. Every time you try to go to court, I'll go to the hospital. I'm seriously injured, you know. I am disabled. No one will look kindly on a woman who leaves her husband when he is hospitalized. You'll have to deal with it. You will forgive me eventually. She simply turned and left the room, slamming the door. Sorry you had to see that, Barry, he said. You see, this bitch is worthless. She's lucky that I love her. I pulled her out of the countryside in Kansas just because she was beautiful. They barely had any sewerage there. She's terrible in bed, but she's mine, damn it. She will be with me forever, even though she doesn't want it. But that's why our friendship is so important. Barry, when things are bad, I can't count on her, but I always could on you. Count. I'm so glad we're friends again. Now I need to contact Bart and Wally. Damn it, we're getting the band back together. Actually, no, I said. We're not friends anymore, Jay. I won't save your ass anymore. You destroyed my marriage and stabbed me in the back in the worst possible way. If this is how you treat your friends, I don't want to be one of them. Iris and I are getting divorced. You and I will most likely never see each other again. With these words, I turned and followed Aubrey. The next few days were busy for both of us. She started looking for a house for the two of us, while I went to meetings to work out my divorce from Iris. Unfortunately, the lawyer she hired was out for blood. We both agreed to split our assets in half, 50-50, but she wanted alimony. I explained to her and her lawyers that I refused to pay her for ruining our marriage. The real reason was that I didn't want us to be tied down financially. I was going to be rich, and I didn't see the point in sharing it with the woman who cheated on me. In the end, we agreed to split everything in half. I will also give Iris 40% of my 401k when I retire or withdraw money. Since it's only a few $1,000s and I plan to withdraw it next week, she won't get much. I will also give Iris $24,000 in a lump sum instead of paying $1,000 a month in child support. This worked for me. I transferred half of our savings and funds from our checking account to a new account in my name. She will receive a check for $44,000 since we only had $40,000 equity in the house, and then I'll be done with her. Iris couldn't believe how quickly I sold the house. She didn't realize that this was agreed upon before we even started talking about divorce. When everything settles down, I will receive a lump sum payment of $250,000 and will receive 4% of the profits of the new luxury shopping center that will be built on the site of our neighborhood. With the purchase of all the lots, Ryan got his friends in Congress to rezone the area to commercial. This is how our area disappeared. Ryan kept his construction crews working around the clock. Construction of the shopping center took only 6 months. It's full of those chic shops that sell designer items. Everything there is overrated and named after some famous idiot. I couldn't believe the amount of money I get every month from this place. In a year, I'll be a millionaire, even with the cost of the house Aubrey and I bought. Yes, we are still together and still very happy. Aubrey turned out to be as passionate in bed as she looked. Jay just didn't bother teaching her. He had never shown her that sex could be as enjoyable for her as it was for him. We spent hours together in bed, exploring what brought us pleasure. Now Aubrey pulls me into the bedroom every chance she gets, even though she's pregnant. And now we come back to the present. Jay tried to contact me several times. I never answered him. Until last week. Last week, I decided to try again for Aubrey. Jay invited me to his barbecue. It looks like he hasn't given up trying to get his old company back. After 18 months, it might be time for him to get what he wanted. Aubrey kissed me when she got into my new 2012 Mustang. We moved the seat all the way back to make room for her belly, but she was comfortable. I programmed the GPS to Jay's new address and drove off. Aubrey kissed me as we drove. She kisses me a lot now. I was really surprised when I arrived at Jay's address. It was a trailer park, and he was not in the best condition. I think with $20,000, that's all Jay could afford. I parked in front of Jay's trailer. I left Aubrey in the car. I needed to find a way to gently tell Jay that Aubrey and I were together. I knocked on the door and expected to hear the sound of a wheelchair, but I heard heavy footsteps approaching the door. Wow, I thought, medical science is doing wonders. I never expected the old lady's man to walk again. When the door opened, I was shocked. It wasn't Jay who opened it. It was my ex-wife, Iris. Her eyes widened when she recognized me. "Oh God," she said, "you look." Iris has never been a small woman, as I already mentioned. But over the past year, she has gained a lot of weight. She now weighed over 300 pounds. Her hair was dull and thinning. Even her huge breasts seemed to have sunk below her waist. I was sure that soon she would have to buy a wheelbarrow to carry her around. Time and gravity took their toll. It was hard to see the beautiful woman I loved for so long turn into this. Okay, not that hard. But it was hard to see it and not laugh. I smiled at her. Barry, are you ready? Is that why you came? Are you ready to take me back? Hey, Barry, I heard from the side of the house. Without answering Iris, I turned and saw him. He was not in a wheelchair. He had one of those motorized chairs. He could move around on it quite well. I left the porch and quickly walked around the house where Jay was sitting. Iris followed me. Her size seemed to make it difficult for her to walk. I knew you would come, Jay said. The rest of these idiots were never our friends. So I'm the only one who came? I asked. Iris nodded. Bart and Christy got divorced, she said. He went east, she went west. Wally is still in prison. Deb has already remarried. She doesn't want to remember the past. There are too many bad memories for her. And I can't find a trace of the bitch I married, Jay spat. She just disappeared. Even her parents can't find her or don't want to tell me where she is. They just laugh at me like it's funny every time I call and ask about her. Speaking of wives, I said, how did you two end up living together? My face frowned as I said this. We are not together in the literal sense, Iris said. This is more for convenience. After spending my divorce money, I needed a place to live, and Jay needs help. Better tell the truth, Iris, at least once in your life, Jay said. I'm shaking her world now. I just smiled. Even after all this time, Jay was still a smug bastard. He couldn't even walk, but he had to prove that he had something that someone else wanted. It was so sad that he and Iris were still having sex somehow that it didn't bother me at all. He could have it. I left it, leaving him his pride. We're not having real sex, Barry, Iris said nervously. I'm keeping this for you from now on. I had to try not to throw up in my own mouth. I'm telling the truth this time, dear, she said. Jay can't. He still has no feeling below the waist. I have needs, you know. I nodded. Iris, we all have needs, I said. Glad yours are satisfied. Barry, I could meet your needs if you would let me, she said quickly. You know that you always come first for me. We can do this right now. Iris, I don't have needs that aren't being met, I said, but I'm glad you have Jay. Barry, is this your car? He asked. Still on Mustangs? This one looks heavily modified. She must have been dear? I shrugged. Barry, you look good. You look rich. Looks like you're the only one from our old neighborhood who came out of it okay. Good things come to good people. What goes around comes around, I said. Barry, I've often thought, Jay said. Where our area used to be is now a huge shopping center. It seems that we all lost our homes just in time for its construction. Damn, it's almost like the Bible. Jay, do you want to know what really happened? I asked. His eyes widened and he nodded. It was obvious that he really wanted to know. This clearly tormented him, and I wanted to tell him too. I really wanted to tell them both, but I couldn't. I wasn't stupid enough to admit to things that could land me and Aubrey in jail. I loved our life together. I was even happier than with Iris. I did not envy Jay his grief, which became my beautiful Iris. In the end, I had the best. So I resisted my urge to tell them how we had deceived them. I didn't rub it in their faces, although I really wanted to. I'll tell you the whole story if you sign this, I said. I took out a set of documents that I kept in my pocket just in case. Marriage papers, he spat. When did you talk to Aubrey? Where is she? I saw her this morning, I said. It wasn't a lie because I actually saw her in the morning. These papers say she left me, he said. Well, it's true, isn't it? I asked. She left you when you were in the hospital. It's really true, Iris said. She has no income, I said. But she lives with a rich guy who will give you $10,000 if you sign the papers. You can do this, Jay. She will never come back to you. You can at least get something. In our state, divorce will take place within a year, regardless of whether you sign these papers or not. If you sign, I can arrange for her to bring you the check in person. Could you arrange this? He asked. I nodded. He grabbed the papers and was about to send Iris to get a pen when I realized I had one. I asked Iris to sign as a witness. Okay, Barry, Jay spat. That cold little country bitch might get her divorce. She was never a real woman. She's just a decoration. Barry, if you want, I'm free tonight, Iris exclaimed. Maybe we can talk about ourselves. Iris, wait for that thought, I said. I need to go back to the car for something. Barry, you have to tell me about the mall, Jay whined. And I have one more question. Why was it so important for Aubrey to receive these marriage papers? If she has already found a rich guy, why does she need this? Jay, I'll be back soon, I said, smiling. I ran to the car and showed Aubrey the papers. She was so happy that I thought she might give birth right then and there. This would be bad because we had more than 2 months until the due date. I helped her out of the car and we walked back to Jay's trailer. When we got there, Jay and Iris were looking at her like they'd swallowed their tongues. Hello, ladies' man, high-fat chick, Aubrey said sweetly. Well, Jay, I said, you wanted to know why it was so important to get these marriage papers. Now you know. To be honest, it didn't matter to me. But Aubrey really wanted us to get married before our baby was born. I keep trying to explain to her that there are no illegitimate children these days. But you know how it happens. She's from a small town. Her parents are very happy for us. But they would be even happier if we got married. They never loved you, by the way. I think they have good taste. Both Jay and Iris began to recover from shock and made unintelligible sounds that could turn into anger or surprise. I think they're trying to talk, honey, Aubrey said. She gave Jay one of her biggest smiles. Jay, honey, guess what? I finally understood what good sex is. It turned out that you just didn't know what you were doing. It didn't take long for Barry to show me what it was. Okay, while you two are trying to turn on your brains, I'll tell you a story, I said. I can see from your faces that you're shocked to see Aubrey and me together. Yes, as you said, Iris, we are together in the truest sense. I love Aubrey more than I can express in words. Iris, you were her warm-up. I guess I never knew what true love was until we got together, and we have you to thank for this. Boo. Jay managed to say, still in shock from the sight of Aubrey. Aubrey stood there, rubbing her belly and teasing her ex. Jay, guess what? We'll name the baby after you and your favorite football player, she said. Remember, you always told me that Aj was your hero growing up. If it's a boy, we'll name him Neje. I hugged Aubrey and continued talking. When I caught you, it started the whole process. I wanted to take revenge not only on you two, but also on the other cheaters. But I'm not a cruel person. I couldn't physically hurt you, so I decided to do it financially. I had help in the form of karma. Burning down Wally's house really helped. My partner bought Wally's property as well as Bart and Christie's property. Jay, he was the one I talked into buying your house. And finally, I sold him my house. We rezoned the area to commercial, and now Aubrey and I are minority owners of this huge shopping center, as you called it. We have more money than we know what to do with, and we have each other. The only thing missing for complete happiness is for us to finally get married. I know you feel deceived now, right? I asked. Jay nodded. I would never expect that from you, Barry, Jay said. Iris lay on the floor and cried. That's not like you, Barry. You could share this with us, Jay said. You know that I can't work. How could you? You were my best friend. This couldn't have happened to a more deserving person, Jay, I spat. Being your best friend didn't stop you from betraying me at the first opportunity. You took away the most important thing from me then. You deserved it. And in the end, we both got what we deserved. I'm much happier now. But what about me, Jay? Iris cried. I thought you loved me. How could you do this to me? Iris, I loved you so much back then that it was stupid. I knew what you were like in college, but I believed you when you said it was in the past and not the real you. I gave you a chance and you betrayed me. Even after that, you couldn't help yourself. We caught you on camera. Less than 2 weeks after I first caught you. We never had a chance after that. You ruined everything for yourself. It's not my fault or Aubrey's. You did it yourself. Aubrey, do you have anything to say in your defense? Jay asked. You left me when I was in the hospital. You should at least give some explanation, and you have to tell Iris something. After all, you stole her husband. Jay, as I see it, our marriage ended when you started cheating on me, Aubrey said happily. You refused to give me a divorce, although I asked many times. As for Iris, she was stupid enough to cheat on a man who loved her far more than you ever loved me. Misfortune is the reward for stupidity. In other words, go to hell. I took Aubrey's hand and led her back to the car, and we drove away. I explained to her why I didn't tell her that we caused Jay's accident and the fire that burned down Wally's house, and that in fact there was no mistake in demolishing Bart and Christie's house. She simply smiled and said she understood. Our child does not need to be born in prison. 4 couples in our area all started out as friends, but when deceit, deception, and betrayal entered our lives, they destroyed the area from the inside. To end the pain, the area had to disappear. We still get random calls from Iris or Jay. Mostly they want to apologize or try to start some kind of friendship. Lately, they have been complaining that the ground under Jay's trailer has become unstable and the trailer is about to fall apart. Apparently, they expect some kind of help from us. What else are friends for? Ha ha ha. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.